Hey, Kenny. Good evening. We'll be starting up in just a moment here. Alrighty, everybody. We'll be getting started here now. Welcome. Again, my name is Dr. Chris Knutson. I'm a classical naturopath. Hoping you're all doing well today. Tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about digestive health. So far, in the last couple of months, we've talked about circulatory health. We've talked about a bunch of different things. We've talked about liver, thyroid. Tonight we're going to be focusing on the digestive system. If you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to type them in. I like answering questions. So basically, we're just going to cover a handful of things that are helpful for certain digestive ailments. Some of these are going to be supplements predominantly. Some of them are going to be dietary things you can do. Just a handful of things to kind of cover some of the basics for general digestive health that are often overlooked. So a lot of us are familiar with probiotics and enzymes, so I'm just going to quickly glance over that because we're all pretty familiar with those kind of things. Probiotics, obviously, in the colon, if you don't have enough of the probiotics present, food isn't going to be processed properly. They're the first defense of your immune system, so your immune system is not going to work properly. Again, we're all pretty savvy with probiotics. Enzymes, however, I'm going to touch on a little bit. Because that's something that there's a few key pieces that a lot of people are missing when it comes to enzymes in the body. Okay, so we know in the digestive system, in the stomach, in the large intestine, small intestine, etc., liver, enzymes help us break down food. This starts actually in the mouth. When you're chewing on something, saliva is producing the enzyme amylase, which breaks down starches. If you're not chewing your starches well enough, it's that amylase that breaks those down. And if you're just kind of gulping it down like my Great Dane does, that the starch isn't getting processed properly. And so because of that, by the time it gets to the stomach, the hydrochloric acid in the stomach is not designed to break down starches. It's designed to break down protein. And in the stomach, you get protease and enzymes that are designed to break down protein. So that's why, I remember, my grandmother, everyone would always say, chew 36 times. I never understood that as a kid. The reason, and it doesn't have to be exactly 36 times, but it's easier to give a kid a number. The reason is because the more you chew, the more you get those enzymes mixed in with the food, the more those starches break down into digestible starches, or digestible sugars. And again, in this case, sugar doesn't mean sugar. It's all starches break down into simple sugars, which get broken down into energy units in the body. So in this case, it's a good thing. So we kind of have an idea of that, amylase, protease. The liver produces bile, which contains lipase, which helps break down fats. And these are just a handful of enzymes in the body. There are, I kid you not, thousands, tens of thousands of enzymes running through every cell of your body, doing thousands of reactions, changes, breaking things down, building things up, altering things within your body every second. Doesn't stop. It's continually going. Now, there are a few things that are potentially going to inhibit this action. Now, one of those things is actually low body temperature. Now, granted, it's summer right now. It's almost 90 degrees today, so people don't usually worry about low body temperature in the summer, but a lot of people with metabolic disturbances tend to have a low running body temperature. And this kind of ties in what we talked about a month or two ago with thyroid and whatnot. If your core body temperature is running low, enzymes actually have a temperature threshold that they can work within. If the body's running too cold, the enzymes don't activate. If the body's running too hot, the enzymes actually can get broken down. And so if your body temperature is off, you're going to start having some issues with a lot of functions of the body, but the first thing you're going to notice is digestion, because that's where we get a huge collection of enzymes running constantly. Anytime we're eating, we're processing with those enzymes. If you're not at the right temperature, if your digestive tract is too cold, you're not going to be breaking your food down right, and it's going to be causing some issues. Now, there's a couple things a person can do for that. Now, some of the symptoms of that are constipation. It's actually one of the most common symptoms of low body temperature, low core body temperature, is constipation. This can also have to do with dehydration and lots of other factors. But one of the factors can be low body temp that's inhibiting the enzymes from breaking the food down properly. Ergo, you have undigested food just kind of hanging out in there and moving through sluggishly, which can lead to fermentation. Fermentation causes gas and bloating, distension, discomfort. Everybody's been there. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Some of this can come down to low core body temperature. In a case of that nature, there's a couple things you can do. A, you can use supplements like kelp to boost the thyroid, which will help raise the core temperature. You can eat warming spices like cinnamon, ginger, cayenne pepper. Any of the warm peppers, warming spices can help boost that core temperature, which is why when you're eating, a bowl of, hot and sour soup, you tend to sweat because there's so many hot spices in there that boost the body's core temperature. That's actually why in most Oriental countries, the meal begins with a bowl of hot soup, whether it's like hot miso soup in Japan or hot and sour soup like in China and Vietnam, Korea, a lot of places like that. You'll get more hot and sour type soups before a meal. The reason for that is it's actually a digestive stimulant. It not only tastes good and kind of boosts your appetite a little bit, it actually is giving you those herbs, those spices that help boost your core temperature so that your digestion functions properly. This is also why in many of those countries people do not drink cold water with the meal. Even from a naturopathic perspective, ice water at a meal is probably the worst thing that you can do for your digestion because it's cooling, it's chilling those enzymes, retarding your digestion, actually. And so one of the best things you can do is drink hot tea at a meal. If you have to drink anything at all, it's best not to dilute your hydrochloric acid too much, but a small glass of hot tea with your meal can, again, raise that core temperature, boost that back up, and help with those enzymatic reactions. It's also why in the old days they used to always tell us to start the day with a hot breakfast. Same thing. In the morning, your digestive system is cold. Your body is running at a lower core temperature because it didn't need as much energy during the night. You're doing repair functions during the night, not activity. And so your body can run a little bit cooler. When you wake up in the morning, that means your digestive system, you can think of it as the fire's died down a little bit. You got to stoke the fire back up so it can properly burn that nutrients, burn that energy. Well, that's why it's so important to start the day with a hot meal. Temperature of the food is just as important as the herbs and spices that you put in it. So if you start your day with a bowl of hot oatmeal or eggs or anything like that, you're going to have far better digestion through the rest of the day than if you started it with cold cereal. Because again, that cold milk right out of the fridge is going to cool your digestive tract down, retarding your digestion, actually lowering your digestive rate, and probably leave you with a sour stomach later in the day. Milk is also somewhat mucousy, and it's just not good combination for the first thing in the morning. Raw milk can have some great benefits, but even raw milk, if it's chilled, not the best thing first thing in the morning. Wait until your digestive system is boosted up a little bit. Because again, core temperature is too low, those enzymes aren't going to work right, and that food's not going to get broken down right. So you want to keep that system warm. Another thing you can do is use something like the ceramic heater that HT produces. Laying under that for an hour a day, because the far infrared penetrates so deeply into the body, it can also boost core temperature. So that's another thing that a person can add in by, just using a simple external fix to slowly start getting the body back to where it's supposed to be. I suggest doing a combination of all of the above, internal and external. Use the spices, use the hot foods, use the ceramic heater externally. All of these things can help boost that core temperature, as well as looking at the thyroid. Again, give your body the right amounts of iodine, give it some kelp, give it some sea vegetables that can feed the thyroid and boost core temperature, because the thyroid controls your temperature. It's your body's thermostat. If it's running low, your temperature's running low. So there's a couple things just on enzymes. Again, I'm kind of rapid firing stuff at you, so I hope I'm not going too fast. But these are a few things on enzymes just to keep in mind. You can take enzymes. They sell them at health food stores and things to boost your digestion. They do no good if your body is running too cold. So that's the key. First, boost the body's temperature, get the body's temperature where it needs to be, and then the enzymes in your body will do a whole lot better. And if you're taking external enzymes in the form of a supplement, they're actually going to be effective. Because if your body's running cold, you can take supplements all day long. Those enzymes are never going to activate. So there's a pro tip for you on that one. Now, a couple little things. A lot of people these days deal with acid reflux, heartburn, etc., etc. Most people think this is from excess acid in the stomach, and so they take antacids. They take Tums, they take baking soda, they take all those different things, which, yes, gives quite a lot of relief. Well, I'm going to kind of flip the tables on you a little bit. In most cases, it's not actually excess acid that's the problem for folks. It's lack of sodium. I know a lot of people are probably freaking out at that right now. Sodium's been so demonized through the last, since the 1940s. Sodium causes heart disease, sodium causes cancer, sodium causes strokes. Sodium chloride, table salt, can lead to a lot of those problems. There are many other forms of sodium that the body needs in rather large quantities. These can be sodium citrate, these can be sodium malate, these can be 1,000 different forms of sodium that we don't use as salt. Salt is only one form of sodium, and it's not even the best one. So here's the thing. The lining of the stomach is actually saturated with sodium. It's a sodium organ. And the stomach, if it starts running low on sodium, if the body is running low on those, what you would call vegetal or food-based sodiums, not mineral-based sodiums, food-based sodiums, that lining actually is, that sodium in that lining is actually supposed to act as a buffer because it's alkaline, a buffer that prevents the acid in the stomach from attacking the proteins, because stomach acid digests proteins that make up the wall of the stomach. So you see the sodium is actually acting as an alkaline buffer to protect your stomach from digesting itself, essentially. So if the sodium in the stomach lining gets too low, all of a sudden that acid can actually literally start affecting, burning, and digesting the stomach wall itself, ergo acid reflux and ulcers. That's where the pain is coming from. The pain is coming from the stomach lining actually getting burnt and partially digested by its own acids. Not fun. Not fun, not fun. There are some simple fixes. Again, when I say sodium, I do not mean table salt. You could eat, a pound of table salt, and all it would do is probably give you Dead Sea Syndrome and turn you into a pillar of salt. Don't suggest it. The sodiums that you want for your body are found in foods, predominantly vegetables. A handful of these that you'll find these sodiums in are carrots, celery, okra. Those are great sources. Dr. Max Gerson long ago had a fantastic combination that I have found has a great balance of sodium and potassium. And I'll tell you this right now, write this down because this one's worthwhile. Run this through your juicer. 3 carrots, 3 large carrots, 2 celery stalks, and 1 green apple. Granny Smith is really good. The reason you want a Granny Smith apple or a sour apple is because carrots are so insanely sweet on their own. If you add a sweet apple, it's going to be like cough syrup. Not good. It's just too cloyingly sweet. So again, 3 large carrots, 2 celery stalks, and 1 Granny Smith apple or some other sour apple. The sour apple gives you the malic acid that will break down the sodium and potassiums into digestible forms that your body can quickly absorb. This will get sent to the areas that need it most, whether it's being sent to the stomach to help buffer that acid, to the gallbladder, because the gallbladder is another sodium organ, I'll get there in a second, or even to the bones. Sodium also plays into arthritis and gout. Low sodium levels can lead to calcification issues. That's a topic for another day. We'll get there one of these days, but that's a topic for another day. Gallbladder, though, that's part of the digestive system. We'll hit that one. Gallbladder is also a sodium organ. It's also saturated with sodium. The bile in your gallbladder is made up of a large portion of, yes, enzymes like lipase, but the main bulk of it is actually cholesterol. Now, again, people say, sodium is bad, it'll raise your cholesterol, all these different things. Table salt, again, think of table salt. We're not talking about table salt. In this case, the sodium we're talking about is vegetal sodium. It's these other forms of sodium. Now, why is sodium necessary to the cholesterol in the bile? Cholesterol is an emulsifier. In other words, fat and water don't mix. Oil and water don't mix. But if you had an emulsifier, like we think of lecithin or soap or things like that, all of a sudden the fat and the water can mix. Well, in this digestive system, that means that that fat has been broken down into a digestible form that the liver can process. If it's not broken down, if it's not emulsified, the body can't process it. And so if the body can't process it, it's kind of useless. The fats don't get broken down if it's not emulsified. This is a big, 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 big problem. Big, big problem. Here's the thing. The sodium in the gallbladder keeps the cholesterol liquid. I'll say that again. The sodium in the gallbladder keeps the cholesterol of the bile liquid. If the sodium starts going low, the cholesterol starts to thicken and get gummy and sticky, and eventually it can even harden up into stones. Gallstones, right there. A lot of people think gallstones are just something genetic. There is a dietary factor here. If your sodium levels in the body are running low, and again, vegetal sodium, the gallbladder can start forming stones. Just like the stomach lining, and this is why you see a lot of people with acid reflux and gallbladder problems together, because they're related issues. They're caused by the same general things. Now, start boosting your vegetal sodium, and that will start thinning itself out. Now, I'm not saying it will immediately dissolve stones or anything like that. No, that's a more complex issue. Possible, more complex. In this case, we're trying to keep it liquid. And so you want the bile to stay fluid so it can move through the bile duct, not get blocked, not concrete, and basically keep things flowing. So again, that same juice that I mentioned before, 3 carrots, 2 celery stalks, 1 green apple, anyone who has gallbladder problems should be drinking a couple glasses of that every day. That combination makes about 1 decent-sized glass of that juice. You should be drinking it every day to give your body those minerals. Now, that's just a Cliff's Notes version. There's a lot more to this that I could tell you, but well, we're kind of on a time clock, and I'm probably going to go a little bit over here, but I don't think anyone will mind. One other thing to keep in mind is the pancreas. A lot of people are having pancreas issues these days. A lot of people are having diabetes. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to cure diabetes. I'm not saying that at all. However, diabetes is associated with the pancreas. There's another thing associated with pancreas. Guess what? Sodium. Did you know that when the acid-saturated food moves from the stomach through the duodenum into the small intestine, guess what happens? The pancreas, which is located right there by the duodenum, releases sodium bicarbonate, baking soda. I kid you not. Baking soda is released by the pancreas to neutralize that acid so that it doesn't burn the intestinal tract. Because the intestinal tract doesn't have that sodium lining like the stomach does. And so this acid needs to be neutralized before it can move through. People with duodenal ulcers, a lot of times it's because the pancreas isn't producing that sodium bicarbonate, not neutralizing the acid, and the upper portion of the small intestine is getting burned. See how this all fits together? So you're starting to see how all these organs work together, and a lot of these organs are dependent on the same things. There's a lot of connections going on here. You have 4 primary alkaline minerals in your body. You have calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium. If you're running low on any of those 4, your body's going to have issues because it needs good quantities of all 4 of those things. So I know I've been kind of beating sodium tonight, but it's just a little piece of it. So I'm going to give you just a couple more things. So again, that juice, it's great. Use that. Eat okra. Incorporate. I know we're in the north. Northerners don't seem to understand okra. It seems to be a southern thing. I love okra. Yeah. Eat okra. Use okra in your cooking. Throw it in your soups. Fry it. Whatever. Just eat okra. You'll get those sodiums that the body needs. Now, just a couple more quick little things. Samuel mentions the Go Greens. Go Greens is also a really good source of the vegetal sodium. Thanks for reminding me of that. Because it's got a lot of those same vegetables and nutrients in it. Kelp, another great source of sodium. But yeah, Go Green, super easy. Put a scoop in, mix it up, shake it in your shaker bottle, drink it down, done. Easier than juicing. I like fresh juices, but Go Green is great. So yeah, a couple other things that you can do there. Super easy, super great. Now, one last thing I'm going to mention, because we're kind of running low on time, and there was a bunch of other things I was going to talk about, but I'm just going to mention 2 more things. So one of them, we mentioned fermentation earlier. If a person is having gas, if they're having bloating, distension, all that great discomfort, first thing that should come out of your cupboard, not the antacids, not the gas X, fennel tea. Fennel seeds. Fennel seeds, you basically take a teaspoon of them. If you have a mortar and pestle, that's great. You can bruise them up a little bit. Steep it in a cup of boiling water, about 5 minutes. It's kind of a light, licoricey flavored tea. Not bad, quite tasty. Add a little honey to it. One of the single best things on the planet for naturally breaking down gas and bloating. And so that's the thing. I know I've had people in my family who have struggled with that at different times. I've had female family members who have dealt with that when, around their cycle, a lot of gas bloating, things like that. It's also good. It's also mildly antispasmodic. So in cases of women, it is also good for cramps. So anytime you're having any kind of that gas, bloating, distension, that discomfort, immediately you should be making yourself a cup of fennel tea, fennel seeds again, and drinking that, sipping on that, because just about better than anything, it'll help break down that gas and bloating. Now, one last thing I'm going to mention to you, and this is, in my opinion, the magic bullet when it comes to digestive issues. It's not going to fix sodium issues. You still have to eat the right foods. But people who are dealing, say someone already has ulcerations in their system. Say the acid has already done some damage. The mucus lining in the stomach is damaged. The sodium is too low. Yes, start drinking the juices because it'll probably start building up that sodium level and start fixing the cause. However, if there's already an ulcer, there's already pain, which means it's going to be slower to heal, slower to break down because your digestive system is already impaired. Now, in this case, I speak from experience. Years ago, I had Lyme disease. It caused 2 large bleeding ulcers in my large intestine, almost killed me. Naturopath in Australia that I will say cured me, totally gone, all symptoms gone, all evidence is gone, which is great. Because according to Mayo Clinic, I should be dead 8 years ago. One of the best things you can start using is slippery elm. That's actually the inner bark. It's a powder. You can get it at most health food stores or order it online. It's the inner bark of the slippery elm tree. Now, again, powder, mix it in water, drink it down. Now, when you mix it in water, it becomes very thick and gooey. The reason for that is it contains a lot of Musa Lodge, a lot of soluble and non-soluble fiber. Now, what does this do? Musa Lodge is very similar to the mucus in the digestive tract. It's the lubricant you can think of, or the coating that protects the GI tract from anything sharp, anything rough, or anything that might be sticky. It helps keep things, like I say, smooth, lubricated, moisturized. It's a moisturizer. A lot of people use lotions and things like that for their skin. Musa Lodge is kind of a lotion for the digestive tract. In cases of constipation, it carries water because it stays thick and gooey through the digestive tract, helps rebuild that mucus lining, and helps coat and soothe that system while having enough bulk to help, like a fiber supplement, move things along. So the non-soluble fiber gives you like bulk, like an ordinary fiber. The soluble fiber is glorious because if a person is having digestive troubles and gallbladder issues, so even if they're not even major, maybe just a little hard time digesting fats. Well, sometimes your body needs an oil change. I know we're going a little over time. We usually only do 20 minutes, but I'm going to give you guys this stuff. This is good stuff. Sometimes your body needs an oil change. And I'll put it this way. When the body uses the bile in the gallbladder, moves to the digestive tract, and a lot of times a large portion of it gets reclaimed and sent back to the gallbladder. Now, over time, we're using the same bile to process the fats over and over and over again. Just like the oil in your car, it gets dirty, it gets thick, it gets sticky, it gets sludgy, and it's not as effective because it's dirty, I guess you could say, because it's been processed of so many times. But the liver won't make fresh bile for the gallbladder if it has an ample supply. So sometimes you need to get rid of some of that old bile so the liver can make new bile to store in the gallbladder. Soluble fiber is one of the best things you can use to bind that old bile and carry it out of the body. That's why they always said beans was so good for you. Beans has a large amount of soluble fiber that helps keep the gallbladder clean. Slippery elm also has soluble fiber that can help keep the gallbladder clean. So do chia seeds or basil seeds. You might have seen those drinks with basil seeds, like little jelly blobs floating in there. Delicious. Soluble fiber. That's what those little jelly blobs floating in there does. That's the soluble fiber. So you can see, it helps keep the gallbladder clean, keep that old bile out of it. Now, as far as ulcerations go, and I'm speaking from my own experience and other people that I've seen, I'm not giving you any guarantees or anything like that. I don't give guarantees. I just tell you what I know. Now, in this case, like in mine, the mucilage in the slippery elm helps to coat and soothe the digestive tract. Just like aloe vera on a burn, it'll help soothe it, or putting aloe or ointment on a cut or a scrape or anything like that. Some things are cooling and soothing. Not cooling as in reducing temperature, but that cooling sensation that reduces inflammation. There's a big difference between reducing inflammation and cooling the body, but both have what you might call a cooling effect. A little catch-22 in the phraseology there. But so reducing inflammation. It does have some anti-inflammatory effects very similar to aloe vera. Now, You take that internally, it's going to leave behind a coating of Musa Lodge through the GI tract that covers that ulceration. Almost like putting a glob of aloe over it. It leaves a coating over that ulceration that for a period of time, while it lasts there, the food you eat isn't going to rub or scrape as hard on that ulcer, causing less discomfort. So in these cases, it can be very, very helpful to reduce that irritation, reduce that inflammation. Again, maybe not necessarily a cure. You got to look at the other factors, like I was talking, sodium and other things. So if we're looking for the cause, not necessarily going to fix the cause, but it can act as a balm, an ointment, I guess you could say, internally. In my case, when I was dealing with those ulcerations from Lyme disease, which again, totally cured, long ago, totally cured, which makes me so happy, the slippery elm was a godsend. Because yes, it's thick, it's gooey, it's sticky, it has a horrible texture, and I will warn you about that right now. Flavor's not bad, kind of has a light maple syrup kind of flavor. Terrible, thick, sticky texture that trying to drink that stuff down it's honestly awful. But you get used to it. You get to the point where you actually almost enjoy it just because of the fact that it's helping. You feel better. And in my case, I was in horrendous pain. And anytime I eat anything, it would scrape against those ulcerations and cause just mind-splitting pain. Now, using the slippery elm, by coating over that, rebuilding that mucus lining, lubricating the digestive tract, it was able to soothe that, reduce the inflammation, and speed along the healing in my case. I have seen that in many other cases as well. So, again, few things to keep in mind. Slippery elm is something that, in my opinion, should be in everyone's medicine chest. Now, here's where slippery elm becomes kind of magical. I mentioned it in the case of constipation, all right? Great for constipation because, again, it moisturizes, lubricates, adds some bulk. If you pair it with, okay, that's going to sound funny, but if you pair it with pear juice, if you, instead of mixing it in water, usually the dose is a teaspoon to a tablespoon in a 6 to 8 ounce glass of water, depending on how thick you're mixing it, depends on the person, how thick they can stand it. Because it does get thick very quickly, and if you just set the glass aside, it'll turn to jelly. So you want to drink it pretty quick. Instead of mixing it with water, if you mix it with pear juice, it actually becomes laxative. Pears have a magnesia compound in them that actually prevents things from sticking to the lining of the digestive system, lining of the intestinal tract. And so you're actually adding a buffer to the digestive tract that prevents clogging, maintains lubrication. So by combining, and I've seen this work so many times, especially in the case of elderly folk, who tend to be a little dehydrated anyway, and tend to be a little deficient in magnesium, and the combination of slippery elm and pear juice I have seen work so good for so many elderly folk in regulating their digestive systems. Now here's the flip side. It's also good for diarrhea. Now you're wondering, okay, how is that possible? How can something be good for constipation and diarrhea? Well, here's the thing. Slippery elm is a bowel regulator. If it's too loose, it'll thicken it. If it's too thick, it'll thin it. Basically, it does this. We explain constipation. In the case of diarrhea, it adds that bulk, and it actually has a tendency, kind of like charcoal, to suck toxins out of the GI tract. So if the diarrhea is being caused by some sort of food poisoning or any sort of toxicity in the GI tract, including certain infections, not all infections, but certain bacteria, it can actually absorb them just like charcoal does. And by doing that, it can help pull that excess moisture out of the GI tract. 'Cause again, it loves moisture. It'll suck up moisture from anywhere. It will pull that excess moisture out of the digestive tract. Notice I say excess. And will help soothe it, will help reduce any inflammation that's causing the diarrhea, like we mentioned before, and will also help add that bulk again to start slowing things down a little bit. So you see here that slippery elm is kind of, in my opinion, it's almost your magic bullet for a lot of GI issues because it's good for constipation, good for diarrhea, helpful in the case of ulcerations, helpful in the case of general discomfort. Many, many, many things that it's very, very helpful for. I believe every do-it-yourself or every home medicine chest should have slippery elm in it. Other nice thing about slippery elm, non-habit forming. So if a person has constipation issues, it's not going to cause any addictions or anything like that, like some of the drugs will. It is non-dependency forming because the body recognizes it as food, even though it's doing more good for the body. Pretty much nothing harmful about the stuff. And I've never heard of anyone who's had I don't think there's possibility for allergic reaction. Don't quote me on that, but I've never heard of it happening. So pretty much one of the safest things you can possibly use. Okay, I covered a huge amount of ground. We definitely went at least 10 minutes over there, but that's okay. Because I think hopefully everybody enjoyed it. One thing I want to throw in, again, as far as core temperature, boosting the core temperature, I mentioned the hot house before. Keep those things in mind. We're all, in with HTE. The machines are fantastic. I love them. One thing I do want to point out, Kenny let me know that we do have a sale for you guys who are watching this until Monday, $425 for the Chi machine. So good deal. So just wanted to throw that out to you guys so you're aware. But again, all those things that I covered so far, probiotics, enzymes, boosting your core temperature, slippery elm, the juice, apple, carrot, celery, like we mentioned, 3 carrots, 2 celery stalks, one green apple, okra, fennel tea, all of these things. Keep these in mind, look into them, and you'll start finding, and try them out, experiment with them. And you'll start noticing how lots and lots of these things can improve digestive health to a very, very great degree. So, thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all next time. Have a good night.